Originally bundled with Pokemon Stadium, the N64 Transfer Pak was an accessory that let players swap data between compatible Game Boy and N64 games. Across both Japan and America, just over a dozen games supported this communication accessory, but importing Pokemon into the 3D space was always the biggest highlight. In fact, the N64 Transfer Pak acted like the precursor to the GameCube to Game Boy Advance Link feature. And I've been documenting this neglected communication feature right here on my channel. Links will be in the description if you want to see more. In my opinion, the Transfer Pak was a very underutilized accessory and had a lot of potential, which got me thinking, what if other games had Transfer Pak support, and what would that connection feature be? I say this device had potential because so many games were released on both N64 and Game Boy. So many, in fact, that I made an Excel spreadsheet of over 100 games that could have had and really should have had Transfer Pak functionality. As a quick example, All-Star Baseball 99 through 2001 were released on both N64 and Game Boy Color. So why couldn't players, teams, or stats be swappable between both games? Like, it would have been cool to play on the go, then input your data into the N64 version to continue your season there. Disney's Tarzan is another example because there was both an N64 and Game Boy Color version. Sure, it would have taken extra work and development time, but it would have been cool if a secret stage or a cheat was unlocked in either version when connected. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea where I'm going with this. So here's a dream list of over a dozen games that would have been awesome if they supported Nintendo's neglected handheld to console accessory. Some of these ideas are going to be more far-fetched than others, and I know the Transfer Pak was released after some of these games, so it simply wouldn't have been possible, but that's sort of the point because this list is entirely made of fiction anyway, so screw it, let's get a little nutty. Oh, and real quick before I jump in, I've been documenting the official Transfer Pak capabilities of all compatible N64 games. Like how cheats become unlocked in Perfect Dark, how character data can be swapped in Mario Tennis and Mario Golf, and how a character gets unlocked in Mickey's Speedway USA. I even covered the Japan exclusive games. Links to my Transfer Pak playlist will be in the description. 007 The World Is Not Enough. Starting this list with an easy pick because it appears at the top alphabetically, and that's 007 The World Is Not Enough because there is an N64 game and a Game Boy Color game. And I don't really see why a cheat menu couldn't have been unlocked or perhaps a unique weapon like the Golden Gun, maybe invincibility, or better yet, play as non-Pierce Brosnan bonds when connected. Either way, a wasted opportunity since a game of the same name was released on both systems. Battle Tanks and Battle Tanks Global Assault. These two tank games are great examples of titles that should have had Transfer Pak functionality because there was a corresponding Game Boy Color version. So why couldn't players connect the GBC game to at least unlock an exclusive tank or a special ability or a crazy cosmetic feature? The Battle Tanks games, both the console and handheld version, are sorta hidden gem sleeper hits, so including such a linking feature could have potentially brought a little more attention to 3DO's forgotten IP. Cyber Tiger. Cyber Tiger is another title released on both N64 and Game Boy Color, so why wasn't a Transfer Pak feature included? Although there's no play the handheld version and upload its data into the console version feature, EA eventually implemented this option with Tiger Woods 2004 on the GameCube as it was linkable with the Game Boy Advance version. A feature that wasn't anything special but still seems like a wasted opportunity here with the N64 game. Donkey Kong 64. It's kind of funny because Rare pretty much made use of the Transfer Pak almost as much as Nintendo, so it's sort of surprising that Donkey Kong 64 did not have Transfer Pak support since the Game Boy saw 3 Donkey Kong Land games and a direct port of Donkey Kong Country on Game Boy Color. So I was thinking, since the original arcade version of Donkey Kong was playable in DK64, perhaps connecting the GBC version of DKC could have unlocked playable versions of Donkey Kong Jr. or Donkey Kong 3. Either way, out of all the games that should have had Transfer Pak functionality, DK64 should be at the top of that list since it was developed and published by Rare and Nintendo, the biggest supporters of the Transfer Pak. Another sad, wasted opportunity. Killer Instinct Gold. And speaking of rare, what if Killer Instinct Gold on N64 could communicate with Killer Instinct on Game Boy? And I'm going to play the reverse card here. Instead of unlocking something in the N64 game, what if somehow Cinder and Riptor, excluded fighters in the Game Boy version, became unlocked when linked with the N64 game? Yeah, I know that really wouldn't have been possible, but rewarding dedicated players with a gameplay enhancing feature like this really would have set it apart. The Elmo games. Here's a stupid one, Elmo's Letter Adventure and Elmo's Number Adventure. The Game Boy had Elmo's 1, 2, 3s and Elmo's ABCs, so having a communication feature between both titles is staring at everyone right in the face. Plus, it would have been an easy way to sell both games to parents. Sure, a youngster might not understand how to use the Transfer Pak, but still, both games are right here just asking to be linked. Hercules and Xena. Hercules the Legendary Journey on N64 could have creatively connected with Hercules the Game Boy Color game, and better yet, it should have been linkable with Xena Warrior Princess on Game Boy Color. The same goes for Xena the Talisman of Fate on N64. Who cares if it's a really bad fighting game? Having an unlockable Hercules cast in the Xena fighting game would have been pretty cool. Or unlocking Xena's stupid boomerang thing in the Hercules game could have been a creative way to connect both universes. A lot of creative potential wasted. The Turok games. Not having Transfer Pak functionality in 4 N64 Turok games is a sin because there were 3 Turok games released on Game Boy. Like, instead of having to input cheat codes on the N64 games, it would have been cool if they were all unlocked when connected with the corresponding Game Boy game, or being able to bring in weapons from Turok 1 into T2 and vice versa. Since there were multiple Turok games for both consoles, there definitely was some swappable potential here. Super Mario 64. Okay, hear me out on this one. I know it wouldn't have been possible, but what if by connecting Super Mario Bros. Deluxe on Game Boy Color with Super Mario 64, you unlocked playable Luigi in Mario 64? Nintendo would have sold Transfer Paks just for this cool feature alone. But I guess we eventually got this with the DS port years later, so maybe it isn't that big of a deal. Duke Nukem 64. What about connecting the Game Boy Color version of Duke Nukem with Duke 64 or Zero Hour? Since Duke always has a humorous side, what if by connecting both games, new unlockable Duke voice quips are used in-game? That would have kind of been awesome, but pretty stupid, just like everything else in this video. Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible would have been another quality candidate as there was both a version released on N64 and GBC. The handheld version also included unnecessary features like a calculator and being able to turn your Game Boy Color into a TV remote. So I'm thinking a new gadget would get unlocked in the N64 game, like a cloaking device or something. Something to make each mission a little easier in this Tom Cruise simulator. Pokemon Puzzle League. The main reason why the Transfer Pak was invented was basically for Pokemon. So why is there no Transfer Pak support between Pokemon Puzzle League and Pokemon Puzzle Challenge? Maybe it would have been cool if Pokédex data could be swapped between both games. Or maybe you can purchase items or new abilities for use in Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, and Silver after you make enough combos? Or perhaps Pokemon Trading Card game could be included somehow. I feel like there's a lot of Transfer Pak potential in this Panel de Pon spin-off. The Rampage games. There were 2 Rampage games released on N64 and Game Boy Color, World Tour and Universal Tour. So what if by connecting the opposite game, the monsters in Rampage 1 could be playable in Rampage 2 and vice versa? It could have brought some extra replay value to both games. Again, I know this is a long shot, but it would have been impressive. Shadowgate 64. I think another creative use of the Transfer Pak could have came from Shadowgate 64, Trials of the Four Towers, and Shadowgate Classic on Game Boy. Since these dungeon explorers can be a little confusing, what if the game provided built-in hints when the Game Boy game was connected to the N64 title? It could have eliminated the need for referencing Nintendo Power Guides if you got a pop-up hint after getting stuck for a few minutes. That would have been something different and creative. The New Tetris. One of the cool features about the new Tetris on N64 was that it tallied all completed lines and used them to build unlockable wonders. To help with this process, the lines in Tetris DX could have helped unlock the N64 content faster. This would have been a simple yet creative way to connect the handheld version to the console version, but alas. Mortal Kombat 4. Mortal Kombat 4 on Game Boy Color is a horrible game and might be the worst fighting game on the system, but it would have had redeeming qualities if it linked with the N64 version of Mortal Kombat 4 or even Trilogy. By connecting the handheld version, perhaps one-button fatalities could have been implemented. Or perhaps exclusive costumes could have been unlocked in the N64 game. Or what if a Mortal Kombat 4 character became playable in Mortal Kombat Trilogy? Yeah, it's an impossible long shot, but still. So that's over a dozen games that could have had Transfer Pak support. Yes, implementing some of these ridiculous features really wouldn't have been possible, but the Transfer Pak was essentially an obscure early version of modern DLC that had the potential to get the creative juices flowing, and something that you would pay $5.99 for today. Personally, I wish there was more support for this little chunky device. Sadly, the Transfer Pak was another thoughtful accessory made by Nintendo only to be discontinued shortly after release. But what do you think? Have you ever used the Transfer Pak? What did you think of this list? Would you want me to make a Transfer Pak wishlist part 2 video? Let me know in the comments. And if you made it to the end of this video, I'm guessing you appreciate weird pieces of gaming history. If so, I'm going to leave links in the description to my Game Boy Advance single pack link playlist where I covered every Game Boy Advance game that supports this impressive multiplayer feature. I also covered many Neo Geo Pocket Color linking games, tons of Game Boy and Game Boy Color linking games, and most GameCube to GBA linkable games. So check those out too because they're just as underappreciated as the Transfer Pak. I also have a Patreon if you want to support me there because making videos like these takes a tremendous amount of time, effort, and money. Any support would be greatly appreciated. Until next time, thank you for watching and game on!